So I think we will get started now. We will be adding people in as they join. I know that a few people join usually a little later, but just want to say, well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for this discussion on the do's and don'ts of digital adoption. I realized when I made this title, it's actually quite a tongue twister. But yes, so thank you for joining us. I am joined by two experts this morning, and we will speak a little bit about their experience working with SMEs in the area of digital adoption. We'll touch upon also kind of digitisation a little bit as well. And then we'll explain a little bit about how this links in right at the end into a program that Salford Business School is running called Help to Grow. But the majority of it will be focused on this discussion. So just a few, I guess, housekeeping notes. If you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind, please keeping yourself on mute. It's just so that the camera then doesn't divert away for the recording. And second, if you have any questions, please just drop them in the chat box and we'll be monitoring them as we go along. I think what we'll do, Jonathan and Mirage, is that if we all just keep an eye on the chat box and then we try and answer them as we go along. I guess some of the questions will be relevant to what something that has just been mentioned. So yeah, I think that would be great. And yeah, please share your comments. It's the aim is to have this let's make this as interactive as possible. So please share your comments, your experiences, your questions, anything you disagree with. Feel free to do so in the chat box. So I will hand it over firstly to Mirage. So firstly, thank you very much for joining us, Mirage and Jonathan. Mirage, over to you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And yeah, thanks, Richard. First thing is I'm coming off the back end of laryngitis, lost my voice. I've got some of it back now, but I may mute every now and then to cough or try and get something to keep me talking. So I just thought I'd let you know about that. So Mirage Islam. I'm a lecturer in digital marketing and innovation lead at the University of Salford, specifically within Salford Business School, but I work across other schools as well. In addition to that, I'm a digital strategist, a consultant to brands and organizations in industry. So that kind of keeps me grounded in what's happening out in the marketplace and really then bringing that into my teaching practice for both undergrad, postgrad, MBA students. So that's probably enough about me, but yeah, there's a fair bit of history, and I'm traditionally a marketer, but I have HR, organizational development, and L&D experience as well. So I'm a strange hybrid of those things.
Thank you. And secondly, I'd like to welcome Jonathan Westlake, our second speaker. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Lovely to be with you. Well, you can see a few of the things I get involved with there. From a SME point of view, I'm active with digital projects. I think at the moment I've got 9 on the go. So that rather grandiose title there, Entrepreneur in Residence, converts into really helping typically small, medium-sized enterprises with digital projects using a variety of software. My background is really business computing. So I think I'm coming up to, I think next year will be my 40th year in IT, stroke computing. So that's what I've done over the decades, and that's what I continue to do, really. That's the joy of the industry, really. You never sort of grow old, really, just because there's new things all the time. So I'm very involved with projects, doing, advising, helping firms employ this sort of technology across their businesses from a business process point of view, but also advising about what to procure, which is often the problem, what to actually sort of get going with. So that's sort of my background. I'm also just briefly mention I'm sort of part of the British Computer Society. So, but the computing with the business is sort of the fusion, which I've always done and continue to do.
Thank you very much. And also, Jonathan is one of the facilitators on the Help to Grow program. And myself, I'm the business development manager for Salford Business School. So each of the schools has their own kind of outward facing position that really is there to develop the relationships with the SMEs. We also have a central enterprise team that covers the university and kind of links all the ecosystem together. So I am just going to take my screen down for a second, because this will just be an open conversation. It's too early for death by PowerPoint. So I'm just going to spotlight people here so that, okay, give me 1 second. Spotlight, there we go. Okay, perfect. So we have a number of kind of questions to kind of get us started, and then we'll move into more detail as we go through. But firstly, Mirage, perhaps you can just get us started by kind of giving us some little information about what do we mean by digital adoption? How is it different from digital transformation and digitisation? Just to get that clear.
A light one from early start in the morning. So essentially, I mean, when we think about digital transformation, that's the journey organizations are going on. So and it's not something that happens overnight or a few weeks or months. It's a part of a long-term strategic plan. And so when we talk about digital adoption, that's more about the practical adoption and usage of tools and services that any given organization has kind of bought into, or buying services. So if we think about pre-lockdown, those organizations that had already invested in digital technologies and solutions really benefited commercially from everybody being stuck at home, spending more time on mobile devices, desktops, iPads, and so forth. And those who hadn't kind of started that journey very quickly realized they had to up their game in a digital context. And so what we saw was a huge ramp up in activity and business activity and sales around digital tools, services, and solutions, even websites, something that we just assume that every organization has. So so that obviously has a knock on around skills as well, which is something that we'll probably touch on a little later on, because we always need to make sure, in terms of having the right kind of digital adoption or effective and efficient digital adoption, that we ensure there are skills in place as well as knowledge and know-how. And sometimes that might mean working with a specialist or bringing those skill sets in-house to be able to get the most out of the investment made by organizations.
Okay, thank you. And okay, so over to you, Jonathan, now. Also, I actually realized that these are not very good starter questions, because we are going straight into it. But anyway, so how can technologies improve a company's bottom line, optimize operational processes, and increase productivity? It's a big question, of course, I understand. But just can you give us some hints into
yeah,
how
sure,
you think?
no problem. Yeah, there's got a few facets there. It really comes down to, well, to firstly say my points I'm going to make really are based on current experience, but also past experience, sort of being involved with the government programs over the last 4 years now, the Help to Grow program. I'm involved with various modules on that, and been involved in that since its inception. But there was some previous programs where, with similar sort of ideas, really sort of trying to sort of advise companies about what to invest in, and that really what it comes down to: what technology to choose, what paths to follow. And the other aspect, of course, is to be innovative, because typically where technology can actually be used, and this goes back to the dawn of really technology being used, going back to the 70s, really, it's how it can innovate, help the business. Looking at what sort of further afield, where does the research side come into? Well, if I think of the Ernst Young report, Tech Horizon 2022, which is obviously relevant for this year. I think it was published in Forbes at some point during the year. They focused on sort of key technology areas, which I think would interest all of you, not knowing all your backgrounds. One is data and data analytics. So that is definitely sort of something which can improve the bottom line. When I say bottom line, I think we're all clear about what bottom line means. It's the net income. It's really how can it actually sort of impact net income. It's got to have some sort of benefit that can be measured, and it can improve the business liquidity. Data is one technology which I'm involved with now with projects at the moment. It's about data entry, helping data sort of go from one system to another, things like that. Other technologies which can improve bottom line. Time, which is really what Mirage was saying really just now. Doesn't say cloud. Everybody says, oh yes, cloud, what does that mean? Well, it means really services. You can use a service where all the sort of the day-to-day maintenance is picked up by the third party with some sort of service level agreement. That gives flexibility, scalability, and also promotes collaboration. So there's another aspect which can improve the sort of thing of working on certain things and sort of divesting things to other areas, other services. Other things which technology wise, which we can talk about and really sort of mention on the Help to Grow program in the early modules, are things like machine learning, which is training, learning, building up experience, and there's AI as well, which we are seeing in applications that, in a sense, some sort of thinking going on. But be careful about the distinction between those. Really, it's how those can actually free up time in terms of diagnosis, decision making. On the operations side, because that was the other part of the question, the operations process side. Well, it's process analysis. I'm sort of get heavily involved in this, really, where we look at the as-is processes within a firm, and then look at what the to-be process could be. So essentially, it's looking at the steps and how tech can actually reduce some of the steps, save time, leave more time for the exception handling. I've got a little sort of example I can give you, perhaps at the end. I don't want to obviously take up too many minutes now. So it's making an investment in the technology, and that's really what the Help to Grow program is all about, really to try and give some context, sort of set the scene of what to get involved with and what are the things to back, really. And I think I'll leave it at that, if that's okay, because I think that's enough minutes on that too. Hopefully that's answered your question, Richard, there. It's really sort of, it's all really about trying to look at how to increase productivity by technology, but also looking at how the processes can involve the technology is just as important.
No, thank you. No, it's a great answer, and there's some great tips there. So just moving on from that, I think this question goes in quite nicely. So let's say I'm a company, I have all these options, I go to these expos and I get bombarded with people saying that their technology is the best. How do I know which one to pick?
Yeah, and it does go nicely, actually. And just leading from what Jonathan was saying in terms of ultimately the way we've got to view it is that technology is enabler, not necessarily the solution or the well, it is a solution in some respects, but it's not the kind of the golden egg, that you can buy it and it's going to fix everything. So as a business owner, as a leader, as an organization, one of the fundamental steps to take at the beginning is to actually ask yourself, what's my overarching objective here? What am I trying to, where are the pain points, and what am I trying to solve? And where can these solutions be? Because there is a danger sometimes, because we know that innovation is rapid, and tech innovation is happening all around us, and there's a new tool, new shiny solution that comes to market so often. So sometimes there's a danger that we become like magpies, that we get drawn to the shiny aspect and say, oh, that's the solution. Or a business colleague or partner has said, oh, I've heard about this. Well, if we go back to what is it we're trying to solve here, what are we trying, is it about efficiencies, is it about better customer relationships, is it about the bottom line in terms of how much revenue we're making? It could be all of those things. But once we've taken the time to deconstruct and ask those questions, and as a business leader, often getting that time is one of the hardest things to carve out, because you're being pulled and stretched in so many different directions. Taking those few moments to ask those very important questions can lead to spending a significant amount of your budget on it could end up in the right in the right solution if we ask those really deep questions early on. And so, there's a whole range. We've got solutions for, from invoicing to e-commerce, customer relationship management, content creation, analytics. I mean, a few years back, they were just saying data is the new oil. Yeah. So, but the data and knowing what questions to ask of that data can actually have huge benefits to the bottom line and organizations. And so, echoing what Jonathan was saying, in terms of the focus on that data, we can then start to look at the right kind of technologies that can extract that information from customer interaction to engagement, knowledge sharing, collaboration within the organization, because everyone on this call, ultimately your business and your customers better than anyone. So with that level of insight, and then having artificial intelligence and technology playing its part, not necessarily being the golden egg or that solution, using it effectively can give you really powerful results. And one of the things that I probably just finished this bit on is the fact that every year, Edelman, one of the largest kind of communications agencies in the world, produce a report called the Trust Barometer. And one of the key things that's been discussed since 2014-15 onwards is the breakdown in trust, and how every brand and organization is trying to build that level of trust with its customers and its organizations, and to the point that now employees expect their leaders, the organization that they work for, to take an active role in societal issues, in big things that we would normally expect other parties to take the lead on. And so, if that is the case, there are technologies available that allow us to build really deep and meaningful understanding and conversations with our customer base to be able to target them effectively. So that's just another layer of thinking, and some of the things that we can get into and discuss in more detail when we make that time.
Thank you. So I think we're going to move a little more into the transition the transition to digital culture. So of course we touched upon this already, that as you implement new technologies within your business, of course the skill sets have to match that in order to be able to deliver it. So Jonathan, what are some of the ways in which a company can ensure a gradual transition to a digital culture?
Yes. Okay. My answer to this one would be communication. It's communication at all levels. It's sometimes brushed over. We heard the term stakeholders, and we go, oh yes, stakeholder. Sometimes you don't know who the stakeholders are. So one of the first things I do with businesses that I'm involved with is find out who's involved, who could be involved, and with that, then you've got really a sort of a functional decomposition of who's involved in the company and who's going to have some sort of input or say. So it's really providing communication and vision down through, either it could be a matrix organization, it could be a hierarchical organization, but it's really trying to promote that vision of innovation, that cultural change, that everybody can be involved with that, and ideas can come from different parts of the company. Because what you are doing is changing the philosophy, really. You're trying to engage employees as stakeholders in the company, and Mirage has touched on this, really, in a sort of I suppose an openness type of philosophy that really it's really looking for buy-in, as the Americans would say, with every team, everybody within the organization. And with that, then the job roles will change, but also the appreciation of what digital adoption can actually bring. And to give you briefly a very good example, one of my friends is an insurance broker, and I have to be very brief with this because I don't want to run out of time, but I spoke to him recently, and he said he was fearful for his job. And I said, right, okay, because they were looking at how he does insurance brokering, and he's been doing it for many, many years. And he said, I think they're going to try and replace me with a robot, which of course, dealing with fear. And I said, well, hold on a minute. Tell me about what you do. What are the most difficult things you find? Oh, it's dealing with the exceptions. A lot of the brokerage is run of the mill. I said, well, that's what they're trying to actually replace, aren't they? They could perhaps, do things where we've got almost like, we've done this before, that's the solution, that's the price we can quote for the brokerage. And then you can spend more time on the things which you don't get time to do enough. Yeah, there's not enough time in the day to actually deal with the exceptions. And of course, as soon as I sort of changed, gave a different viewpoint, he got it. But that's not been explained to him. And he wasn't made redundant. And that's what's occurred. They've taken the drudgery and giving it to technology. And then the thing, which of course is the expertise, the people side of things, he's able to spend more time on. So it's been a positive outcome. But the communication in the organization, it was a large organization, not a SME actually, wasn't there. And it could have been there, and it would have made a big difference in terms of his involvement. So there's an example really about the way to go about it. Really, a cultural change is to sort of involve everybody and make communication something which is given a high priority.
Mirage, is something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it's something that Jonathan just said that really struck a chord, which is this, there's the fear elements, but then also for any organization, there's a huge amount of knowledge that resides in staff, because whether the person on the counter answering the phones or doing the invoices or dealing with customers on a day-to-day basis. And so, what we want to be able to do is use technology in a very effective way to be able to sort of transfer some of that knowledge so that others and coming into the organization can benefit from that. And for whatever reason, if we have staff or colleagues retire or move on or go to another organization, we don't want to lose that value, because that's been built up over years. And technology can play an incredible role in terms of extracting that in a really nice way, to be able to use that effectively for continued growth for the organization. That's what I just wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps we can just quickly answer a question that we have from Sunny with regards to his company which manufactures plastic packaging, and his ambition is to make the production hall paperless. So I guess we're talking about a big overhaul in the operations. Firstly, I'm just going to jump in and just say that, shamelessly say that I really do think that if you're looking to make a large change across the business, the help to grow could be interesting there, because you're going to have to change, the skill sets, with the people who are, running the operations, how your operations are structured. It's also could be a good excuse to completely rebrand your company as well. So really, you can have a look at we will explain a bit more about the modules. Secondly, the second point I wanted to mention is that if you are looking to automate more of the process, then we do have NERIC within the University of Salford, which is the North of England Innovation Robotics Centre. And it's they're looking to get companies involved in that in order to get them using robotics, and use of it for the time being is fully funded. It's off the back of the European funding, so something to bear in mind as well. So Jonathan and Mirage, anything you'd like to add to that?
Can I just add there, Richard, just to mention to the group, the end product of the Help to Grow program is a growth plan, which we start really from the first modules. You build up. So just answering, going back to the chat question there, that's something you can work on in your own context within the business. It's not a set of lectures as such. It's something where we indicate ways to go about things, and then you can apply them to your own business. So at the end of the actual period of Help to Grow, you'll have in a sense, a plan, a growth plan, an activity plan of things that you can get going with, but also sort of a plan to do as you go forward.
Okay. Mirage, anything you'd like to add, or should we carry on with the questions?
No, I think, well, on Sunny's point, it's that yes, there are many things that we could do, but I think it's a case of taking that step back and really looking at the this is one. It sounds like this is one innovation of many, and so and really does sound like a whole transformation program. So what we don't want to do is do anything in isolation, and so that you get maximum benefit for time and effort and money spent. So taking that step back and taking advantage of just looking at the bigger picture there is benefits to be had, and efficiencies when
just
going
chip in.
paperless and
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah, I'd say
Thanks,
it's Sonny. It sounds like an enterprise system solution for you. It's really a combination of. It's not just one thing, as Mirage said. So typically we call that, sort of looking at it from an enterprise point of view. And an enterprise, not an ERP necessarily, although it is a production system you've got. So ERP typically would be something, and perhaps even open source. It doesn't have to be one of the big players. There's plenty of open source solutions.
Yeah, great to see that. Tracy's comment there in terms of that there's all things you're already doing. Yeah, which and that's great, because many of you will already be doing elements of these things that we're talking about. But coming back to Sunny's question and point is the fact that sometimes we just need to connect all of the different dots, and then we can really get some benefit from that.
Thanks, guys. Really good input. Richard, I'll probably drop you a line afterwards and try and tap in something you've said, but appreciate the input from all three of you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Sunny. Okay, so we're going to continue. And actually, I think it follows on quite nicely from what you mentioned with regards to isolation and connecting the dots. And, the next question is that, what is the best way to incorporate digital adoption into a business strategy? So it's not just, as we say, willy-nilly. So yeah, I'd love to hear your comments on that.
Yeah, so my starting point would be openness and transparency. And so, and that's from top down, bottom up. And so, and this is kind of, regardless of the size of organization we are. So, some companies on this call may have an HR function, others may not. And so, but what we can do is learn from how other organizations have gone through their digital transformation programs. And part of those programs is the adoption of new technologies and solutions. And I think just thinking about that question takes me back to when I was group talent and technology specialist at Talk Group. And one of the things that we did to implement a whole new program we were going on one big transformation. The company had grown through acquisition. So you had multiple cultures, organizational behaviors and ways of working in, under one brand. And part of the objective was, how do we align all of those aspects, but then get the benefits and achieve the commercial objectives. And one of the things that we did as part of the entire process, was rather than this case of buying technology or solutions and implementing it and then thinking everyone would use it, that wasn't going to work. It wasn't a case of implement it and they will come and use. We realized that actually what we needed to do was engage all levels of the workforce. And even before anything was invested in or anything was purchased, it was more a case of, okay, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? And it was a collaboration. It was an opportunity to build relationships, and also at all levels. So it wasn't management implementing something that everyone else had to use. And so this kind of conversation across departments, skill sets, we had finance and legal, and we were having people on the front desk involved, people in the call center involved, to help share some of the knowledge and insight that they had, so that we could actually have a really full picture of what would be the best solution. And so when it comes to and you might say, well, these are £1 billion companies, so how does that impact me as a smaller organization? Well, actually, what we can learn from that is that we have a leader, an organizational leader. We have people in the company that perform various tasks, and we have a customer base. And so if we're thinking about building those deeper, more meaningful relationships with customers, then part of the adoption process is helping people overcome that fear that Jonathan mentioned earlier, that people may have in terms of change. Not all of us like change. Not all of us want to change on a regular basis. And sometimes that brings on a whole range of fears. And so one of the things that can be one practical element is to be able to have those dialogues. So whether it's a workshop, whether it's regular meetings, whether it's a few emails, but a combination of, so that that kind of the conversations, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we function on a level whereby we communicate with one another. And so if we have that, and yes, we're conversing over a video call now, but things have changed. COVID, pandemic, lockdown has changed how we work, how we operate. And even those people that I know who were really fearful of technology and change are now using video. My elderly mother will call me and she wants to talk to me on video. And it's like, a few years ago that would never been the case, or even a year ago. So it's one of those things that people have changed, behaviors have changed. The pandemic has really had an impact on how consumers are behaving, how our workforce are behaving. And so what we can do in terms of adoption is having a program that says, okay, a series of meetings, workshops to, first of all, to get people to share what they're feeling, what they're thinking, how they feel things could be improved, and using that information to then play back and say, right, okay, well, if we used this technology, then having an educational program to say, this is how this is the purpose. These are the benefits of this technology. This is how you can use it. Have a play around. Here's a test version. Let's get used to it. Let's try and break it. Let's see if we can fix it. And so that process allows for that adoption. So kind of a longer version answer, but really it comes down to human relationships, workshops, and engaging through kind of meaningful collaboration.
Okay, thank you. And I believe you may have touched on this, Mirage, but Jonathan, if
yes,
is there anything you'd like to add with regards to kind of getting buy-in?
Yes, I've got a few things. Really, just going back to the previous question, it's really build that into your strategic documentation. So your business strategy needs to be, needs a document, really something that's actually a work in progress document. That's what I always advise. Have something which isn't a static document which sits on a shelf or in a server file somewhere. Something which is being always worked on, and that can include training plans, sort of role analysis, these kind of things, process analysis. But I do see some firms actually, what they do, they bring digital adoption in, technology, and all they do is automate a bad process. That's one of my mantras, and say, well, why have you done that? This was the opportunity to actually look at the process and the people who were involved with it. So in terms of tools to use to try and get that breeding ground culture, that's buy-in from employees. It's a societal problem, not just a workforce problem. We've got this in society generally. In the UK, we've got certain parts of the population who don't want to use banking systems. They can't use a website to book a holiday. They just find it too complicated. They don't have apps. We operate with apps, don't we? All of us. But the apps, I've seen this recently with rail tickets. Rail tickets are moving into really, it's on your phone. That's how you scan it, etc. Not everybody wants to do that. So it's trying to get over that somewhat resistance, but also sort of fear and lack of expertise as well. So focus groups are a good idea. That's what we tend to do. You need to allocate people to look at certain things. I always believe that unless somebody's driving something, it won't happen. Now, of course, it depends on the size of the firm. You could be a micro SME, you could be a SME which goes up into the hundreds of employees. It depends on the size of workforce you've got, but certainly set a schedule and track the workforce who've engaged with training. So have they done that training? Can they show expertise? Train the trainer, those kind of things can be done as well. So all sorts of techniques to actually improve the curve of people's expertise with things and get them used to doing things. Yes, not everybody will have the same lack of fear that children have. They just pick something up and have a go with it. We all know that. With certain members of the workforce there look at something, oh, I've got this device, I don't want to press that button, what happens if I press it? So it's trying to obviously give them scripts to have a go with, and they can get used to doing things. That's the way to tackle it.
Okay, thank you. So, of course, you must have worked with many different types of companies, different industries, from small to relatively large, with different structures. How, in your experience, how do these companies go about digital adoption differently? And can you share any of your experiences on this?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in cherry picking. Yeah, so that there is best practice happening in lots of companies of different sizes, and and it's never a one size fits all. So it's a case of understanding the organization that you run, and depending on size, and knowing what resources you have available. So, for example, if you're hiring in HR solutions, then actually that function may also have somebody who's skilled up in training and development or organizational development. And so one of the, irrespective of size of organization, having those initial focus groups allows you to tease out what people are thinking, what people are fearful of, where some of the blockers are. Adding to Jonathan's point, there's no point bringing in new technologies to just carry out the same functions but in a digital way, because you're not actually innovating. What you're doing is using a legacy system and just replacing it with a new way, something that you're inputting into. So having that kind of approach in terms of those focus groups allow you to get that information. And also from a cultural and adoption perspective, the more people are involved, the better the chances of success. So if we take a human-centered design process approach to any kind of adoption, irrespective of size of organization, if we involve the stakeholders at the outset, the people, the end users, the finance director, HR, whoever, if it is just, there could be someone here who is actually, running a successful business, but it's just them. But then, what network can you build around yourself to get some of those skills in, to get the right solutions from invoicing, project management, and so forth. But having that focus group first allows us to tease out some of the potential blockers further down the line. In all of the projects that I've run, and I've adopted this human-centered design process that started off in tech development software way back. It's nothing new, but now it actually can be applied in any delivery. And what it really does is it takes into consideration the human need to be part of something and to come up with the right solution for them. And it comes back to my original point, which is, not doing something to the people in the workplace, is actually working with them to get the right solution. And that's really key. And I think, to that point, in terms of, to get a successful adoption, the more people are invested and they feel that they've played a role in some of the decision making, then actually they have a vested interest to see it succeed. And that's part of the reason why what I talked about at TalkTalk was successful, because we started off in that way by asking everyone, tell us what you think. How can we improve? These are some of the challenges that we have as an organization. This is what we need to do. What are your thoughts? As business leaders, we have enough pressure and on our shoulders and burden. So let's not burden ourselves even further by trying to be the only one that can fix it. Bring in the masses. So the wisdom of crowds.
Thank you. And I think we'll move on to our last question. So, Jonathan, what tools could you possibly recommend for companies that are looking to, perhaps adopt something new, some new technology, or perhaps they're looking to overhaul a little bit their systems?
Yes, you can look at this from different perspectives, really. Obviously, I've got a box of solutions which I tend to use for the current projects, but also previous projects. Really, what we typically talk about this as being the stack the technology stack, and it's choosing out of the myriad of things which are available, which to actually go with. I'll sort of have a few conclusions when we get to it, really, about sort of takeouts about how to go about that. But just to say, at the moment, really, one sort of tech to use, for digital adoption is really from the planning point of view. So I tend to use a Kanban sort of a product called Trello, which visually very easy to sort of control. Everybody can share and see what's going on. So you want something which is collaborative, and for a digital adoption project, that's absolutely essential. So people know what tasks there are and where they've got to and who's been allocated to it. So it's a bit like a ticketing kind of system, and you can move it along. So if you haven't seen Trello before, not that I'm a Trello, it's open source, so it's like, there's sort of paid versions of it as well, but you can get going with it as a sort of an open source project. That's vitally important, really building on what Mirage was saying. You need to have that kind of engagement. Other things which are, depending on your business, really, if customers and the management of customers is very important too, then there are various CRM systems out there. So one of the projects I'm involved with at the moment is using a thing called Suite CRM, which is an open source customer relationship management software package, and you may want to look that up. There's also other things like Odoo. If you're into e-commerce, I do quite a lot of e-commerce solutions advice for existing projects, but also over the years. So there's things like PrestaShop. Essentially, I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, so we don't like to spend too much money. Actually, zero money ideally. I want maximum benefit for the least amount of money. So I'm very much sort of in the SME mentality. So I'm always looking at what other people are using and why they've used them, and what do they get from it. That's the analysis that needs to take place. So I do what we call benchmarking. I go and actually look at case studies. So there's plenty of e-commerce solutions out there which don't have to be something where you're spending money before earning money. Okay, and this is the kind of stuff we obviously do on the Help to Grow. We give links to various things which we're actively using, and we can recommend, and you can apply to your own business. So those are just a few of the things, really. It's really looking at open source software for a SME is very important, because of course you can keep your costs down that way. And then of course, if you want to use a licensed product, well, then it's looking at the sort of the implications of that. This is where the cloud comes in as well. You can use Office applications in the cloud. So leverage things which are available to you, and have lots of benefits, but for little cost. The other thing I would say, it's back to that strategy which we were talking about, and that growth plan, activity plan. It's having milestones in the digital adoption process. So you can't do everything in one go. It's really got to sort of say, okay, what can we get done? What can we deliver? What can we actually sort of get going as a module? And then what's the next target? So it's really, that's where the advice comes. It's really, and it's typically what I do. It's trying to actually sort of make sure we can walk before we can run, and having products, tech solutions, which are not something which is going to be put on the shelf. And over the years, that's what I've seen, investment in things, and then a year later, oh, that's not, we shouldn't have gone for that. We should have gone for something differently. You need to do your homework, really, which can take time, but it's worth doing. So don't just leap in. Take time to actually look at the various tech options which are out there. Collaborative tools, we've already mentioned this. Well, video content tools, social media we've got to bring in as well. I'm sure you're all using social media, but are you analyzing the social media? So really, reels are very popular at the moment with Instagram and Facebook. Easy to do, great impact, low cost. Okay, it's just time, really, and a little bit of expertise. Collaborative tools and apps, of course. At Salford, for example, we do everything with apps. At Staffordshire, when I also work, we have some apps, but not all apps. So it's back to that strategic view. It's how far do you want to go? But apps, this idea of mobile applications, not web applications, but really applications on the move, you can use for your smartphone. That's where we're going. That's where the technology is going. Less fixed screens and more. I'm in a room somewhere and I can connect and I can access the data for my organization that way. Hopefully that's giving you a little bit of a taste of things which are available out there as a platform.
Yeah, thank you. And Jonathan, if you don't mind, we will share a couple of those couple of recommendations in the follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on to explain a little bit about Help to Grow, and I'm not going to spend too long on that, but perhaps in less than a minute, would you like to both sum up what you would say as, your and the points you'd like to most highlight and summarize from the discussion this morning?
Yeah. So shall I start, Jonathan?
Yes, you go first.
Okay. So first of all, I think one of the key things is take a moment, take a step back from your day to day, because you're delivering and working towards building a successful business. You're already running a successful business. So the mere fact that you're on this call actually shows that you want to take things forward. So taking that step back, having a broader view, allows you to take a moment to take stock, but also to start asking questions in terms of, right, what are my overarching objectives? What do I want to achieve? That allows you to then think about, well, actually, there are a number of things I need to do. And when we talk about tools, there's a danger to reach out and say, I'm going to use Slack as my collaboration tool. I'm going to use Yammer as my collaboration tool. I'm going to use Teams. And all of a sudden, you've got 3 or 4 different communication tools, and no one really knows which one to use and which is the most effective for you. So before you jump in, think about which is going to deliver the most value for what you want to do. Going back to the whole cloud base, whether it's Teams, Google services, Amazon services, there's so many different ways to be able to communicate and operate in a kind of post-lockdown world. So for me as a strategist, I think one of the most valuable things that any business leader can do is and it's difficult, is to carve out the time to just pause and reflect, and then apply, what it is you want to achieve and find the right technical solution to do that. Remember, technology is the enabler, and it's not just something that you should put in and repeat old practices.
Thank you. And Jonathan?
Okay, I've got 3 points. The first one is really based on, just building on what Raj just said, really, but feedback we had from the last run of Help to Grow, and I've had the same feedback on previous runs and previous programs. The attendees found there was time to discuss things, debate things, meet other people from different industries, different business sectors, time to step away from the business. That was a comment that my last residential period at Salford, when I was with Richard, if you recall, Richard, that's what all the attendees actually said. Today, we were able to step away. I've got out of the business. I've come to a different location. I've had time and to reflect and listen, and then put it into my own context of the business. So the Help to Grow program can be very reflective. It's not just about doing a growth plan and then learning about new technology. It has the opportunity to get a new perspective. It's not telling you how to suck eggs and be patronizing. I must stress, it's a discussion forum, and it's using the material obviously as the vehicle. So I'm sure you're all so involved with your own businesses that you don't often have time to step away from it. And so that these kind of programs can be very useful from that point of view. Second point would be keep your company credit card locked up. Don't take it. It's almost like going to go and buy something from a retailer. Go and look, but don't dive in and buy it. Find out what the competitors are doing. See what the trend is within your own business sector, which you may know already, may need a little bit of research. Do a little bit of benchmarking, i.e. benchmark the features of the different cloud providers. It's all available, it just needs a little bit of analysis. And then you can start to make these decisions based on which tech you want to go for. Third point would be measure. It's important to measure the digital dividends really along the way. I do urge that, to try and quantify what the potential benefits you think may be, and then quantify the actual as well. To see if you are getting the return, not only on your money, but return on efficiency, productivity. It's not always just down to the sort of a pound as such. It can be really in terms of efficiency. We've got a smoother way of adding value to what we do for our customers. So there's the value. It's not always just internal, the value. It can be external as well. And then you've really got a sort of way of measuring the success of an implementation. If you don't start with that, some sort of guidelines about what you think will be the success factors, then you're a little bit sort of you're feeling your way, you're sort of a little bit blind. So avoid some of the sales speak. It's lovely to go to trade shows, as Richard says. I try and go to as many as I can because I listen to what the trends are, what's the industry saying. But you've got, that doesn't mean I've actually chosen something or recommended it. It's needs some sort of further work before you start to implement it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of the kind of stuff which I do day to day, and Mirage does day to day as well, to give you a little bit of insight into our thought process.
Thank you. So I think before we move on to explain a little bit about Help to Grow, there is one question. So it is with regards to the rewriting of a project management system, and it said that much of the functionality. Oh, another has just popped up. So is there an off-the-shelf solution readily available? And then, sorry, it popped up from David, has recommended, are you already embedded with Microsoft 365? The version of Dynamics 365 operations? Yeah, any recommendations of an off-the-shelf project management system then?
Yes, I can chip in. There are some open source project management systems which you can, and I've already hinted at one with Trello really, but there are others available which we can provide as a little sort of list of some things to go and look at. Open source, I know I mentioned it before, but of course that does appeal for me as a SME because of course it's collegiate. It's the group actually develop it, and they're very sophisticated, the open source packages these days. If you want to go for a license, i.e. something where it's a product and you're buying it and then you've really got comeback on that, then fair dues. But there's plenty of project management systems out there. I'd need to know a little bit more detail about how it's being used. It's obviously, it sounds like it's more than just a project plan, i.e. some sort of Gantt chart. This sounds like it's bigger than that from what I detect from the question.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to move on and explain a little bit about how, I think we've mentioned this a few times, but how this links into the Help to Grow program. So this will be the 6th cohort that Salford Business School has executed. We have one going on at the moment with, they're small groups, so no more than 25, and then a minimum of 15. So yeah, we have, I believe, 18 on this cohort from all different sectors. So we have, from a dentist in Bolton to a law firm based in city centre to manufacturing based in Ashton. We've had literally everybody that you can possibly imagine participate on this program from all different industries. And just to explain a little bit more about how the course works. So basically, it's something which has been led by the UK Chartered Business Schools, so Chartered ABS, and they have asked certain business schools within the UK to really drive that growth within SMEs, hence the government funding. And the aim is for them to reach 30,000 businesses within the next few years. So it's a 12-week program, and I often get the question, oh, is it 12 solid weeks? No, basically it's a 12-week program where the majority of it is in one morning. So you will have a different module that you will look at each week, a different topic, and it's aimed exclusively at senior business leaders of SMEs. So that can, it can be the managing director, it could be operations director, sales director, or if it's a slightly larger company, we can also go into kind of project leads or kind of team lead. So the idea is that, as Jonathan had already mentioned, constantly giving you the opportunity to reflect upon your business. And this is done with a real world approach. So really looking at different case studies, how other companies may have done it. You will also have those goals and opportunities to share with different people from different industries and how they possibly have done something within their company that has worked. So it's 90% funded by the government and delivered by our faculty, our wonderful faculty. It's in total, it's 50 hours across the 12 weeks. And then from week 3 onwards, it's really all trying. So the way it's laid out is that you have your classes 1 day a week. And then from week 3 onwards, you will be assigned a business mentor, and you will then work with them to put together a growth plan. And you can decide how this plan is, how you put together this plan. So it could be a plan for the entire business and how to grow the business. Or perhaps, you think, okay, we really want to develop a new product line. So we want to look to see how we can grow what area of the business you decide. But the idea is that, you're working with this expert to put together this plan, whilst in tandem you're going through the program and you're looking at the different ways and different aspects and different sides of a business and how you can grow it from those different angles. So 8 of the sessions are delivered online. This is because we get people from all different parts of Greater Manchester and the Northwest, and even further afield as well. We've had quite a few from Yorkshire take part as well. So 8 of those are online, and then, of course, as Jonathan mentioned, we have 4 of those sessions where you are actually here within the business school, and you have that opportunity to kind of touch base with your colleagues, face to face. They're slightly longer, the sessions. We put on some breakfast, so it's really an idea that you have this morning to really build those relationships. And then, of course, we have these peer-to-peer learning sets. So the online sessions are recorded. So, for example, if you can't attend one week, one of the online sessions, you can look at the recording afterwards. Of course, we want as many people to get involved in the live versions. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is that in the peer-to-peer learning sets, right, as you can see right at the end, we put you into small groups. And this is where you really drill down into your company and you really dissect what you are doing, and you really share how you've been doing things in the past, and you will also gain knowledge from other companies, and those aren't recorded because, of course, some of the information that you share could potentially be confidential, and you really are sharing going to the grassroots level of your company. So some of the key business outcomes, and there are many, Jonathan said one of them is just taking that step back from the company and really having a look at how you are doing things. I'm not a business owner, but I do wish I had more of that space sometimes to take that step back. And I think if you can grant yourself that 1 or 2 hours a week to do that, then it can completely change how you're doing your job. Yeah, as I mentioned, you look at all the different areas, organizational design, digital adoption, efficient operations. We'll have a look in a second at all of the modules. But the idea is that you may have somebody that's just going up into a director position. You may have been you may have owned your company for 20 years, but you think, actually, we need to change how we're doing things. Perhaps you did an MBA 20 years ago. Things change, as we know, on an annual basis now because of technology, because of how we're doing things, having to become more agile in terms of to react with the obviously volatile economy, all these different things. More excuses to upskill yourself in these different areas, in my opinion. Gives you a chance to boost innovation within your company. As Jonathan and Mirage mentioned, it's not this case of just replacing one process with something else, looking how you can make these changes to then make a difference, often to your bottom line. Of course, because you are working on your business or your business area, you create solutions which are unique to your company. So it really is something that, we're not just telling you how to do it, we're giving you the skills and the knowledge and opening up that space for thinking and really looking to see how you can make solutions which fit in with your business and your business model. As I said, you can get ideas from different industry sectors, and also you get a step into the university enterprise ecosystem. So we work with knowledge transfer partnerships. We have our own networking events that we organize. We're a big university with extremely strong connections with small and medium enterprises across the Northwest. A lot of our students come from, our local, but also they stay out within the Northwest or within the north of England. So we retain those links, and it really gives you a good foot into the ecosystem in the long term as well. So I'm not going to go into detail about this, but these are basically the different areas which we look at as we go through the Help to Grow program. And just to remind you, modules 3, 6, 9, and 12, those are the ones which are in person. And then the other 8 are the ones which are delivered over Zoom. And as you can see, they basically cover all different areas of a business. So perhaps you're looking to export for the first time, or perhaps you're just looking to expand into a different part of the UK. Module 3 will really kind of give you ideas on how to expand in that sense. And then it's all linked in, with your marketing strategy. Is your vision and your mission also linked through to your marketing strategies? That also linked through to how your operations are set up, for example. And then if you're looking to, of course, grow your business, is it structured correctly? Is my business agile enough? These sorts of questions, of course, many others which will be asked throughout the process. And the final part is kind of looking at the operations and the financial management. And then at the end, of course, by module 12, you should hopefully have your growth plan, and then time to kind of wrap it all up. It's really looking at how you take that growth plan that you've put together and how you really, like how you use that within your company, whether it's in the next month or whether you decide to implement it 6 months down the line. So the eligibility requirements for the program. So you need to be just an SME based in the Northwest. As mentioned, we have brought companies on from Staffordshire, from Yorkshire as well. So it is slightly flexible with that. And in terms of number of employees, 5 to 249. If you, as I mentioned to Tracy, if you have perhaps 4 employees or 3 and you're looking and that you're going to expand within the next couple of months, we can let you onto the program in that sense. And this has often been the case by the time they get on the program, which starts in January. They've already got the people on board, or perhaps they're just finalizing the processes. So we see it as that if your company is going that direction, we want to help you, and we would love to have you on the course. You need to have been operational for a year. This usually isn't a problem. And then, as mentioned, you have to be a senior leader within your company. And unfortunately, charities are not able to join the program. We did not come up with this. I've worked in the non-profit sector before, and of course, they operate like businesses. So in terms of that, it's if you have a charity number, you are unable to participate. If you are a non-profit, then you're able to join in that sense. So industry sectors, literally, we've had all different types of companies take part. The top one is construction, but the second one is then professional services. So that goes across all different areas. It could be accountancy, it could be consultancy, it could be all different areas. Education, mainly training companies. Information and communication, 11%. And then, of course, we've had quite a range across the rest. Funnily enough, we have quite a few tech companies signed up for the one in January. So it all just depends on who you're engaging and when. But on all the past cohorts, we've had a very good mix. And look, I'm not going to go through this, but you can just see that there's a huge range of companies from all across different parts of the Northwest. And one thing I wanted to mention is if your company has more than 10 employees, you can have 2 people access the funding. If your company has 5 to 9, then you can have 1 person take part in the program. And yes, the original cost is £7,500, and then with the funding, that brings it down to £750. So yes, any more information, please, I believe you must have my email address. I sent out an email yesterday. Please contact me if you're interested. We will be letting people on the course over the course of the next month or so. And the registration has been open for the past few weeks. You can also find some more information on this website, but I'll follow up with the recording so you can go back and have a look at some of the things that we've discussed. And I will include this website in there, and you'll feel free to reach out to me any questions you might have. So I'm going to pause on that. Does anybody have any questions whilst we're live?
Just put a couple of things in the chat, Richard. Just the link to the Help to Grow page on the Salford website.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
And
Yes.
David just said he could give some feedback to us, and I've just suggested he just email you.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. So, well, if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank you a lot. Thank you all for taking part. Thank you, Mirage and Jonathan, for sharing your knowledge. Really appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you.
And any other questions you have, yeah, please do reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help. So I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Richard,
Thank
as
you.
well for
Bye-bye.
setting this up.